Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schissler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. First of all, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I think we've got a rewarding show for you. I have some ideas, some thoughts, and some challenges on how you can make your business more successful and a better place for you to be. And that's very, very important. I'm coming to you today from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star is the community radio station serving Montgomery County, Texas. Join the community. If you live in the area, I encourage you, go to irlonestar.com. That's irlonestar.com. That's the website for the station. You're going to be amazed at the programs that are available for your easy listening, all things to do with the community. Amazing. And all these programs are hosted and produced by local individuals just like yourself. If you have an interest or an idea about a show, please contact the station. Just contact the general manager, Dick, at Dick, D-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. That's Dick at irlonestar.com. So again, I encourage you, join the community, download the app onto your phone. That way you can listen to the station wherever, whenever you want to, because we're on 24/7. My thought or idea for today revolves around why are we small business people? What is the most rewarding reason or idea even, because some of us are idealists, for being a small business owner? I was reading an article recently about that, and they had a number of people comment, and it was interesting to go through the comments. In particular, you get what I've always told by most people when I ask that question. Well, I like calling the shots and making decisions for myself. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll add, I have only myself to blame if things go wrong. That is the basic reason I hear for people going in business for themselves. But a couple of others kind of struck me as pretty cool. One was, I enjoy the positive feedback as I demonstrate my character and integrity in business. I like people feeling grateful, talking about his customers, and not just being treated as a source of profit. Sounds like that individual is somewhat on a mission, and I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Can only do good things for his business, no doubt about it. Lastly, I had one, all the hard work is worth it when you spend each and every workday doing your best. Again, someone a little bit idealistic, but again, I think that's wonderful. So I pose the question to you as a listener, if you're listening and own a small business or thinking about opening a small business, why? What is your most rewarding part of being a business owner? Or if you're opening that business, what do you anticipate will be the most rewarding part? I want to remind you that a broadcast of the show will be shown on YouTube Live. Simply go to the Weekly Business Hour page, click on Show Live, and you can watch as well as listen. Particularly when you got two beautiful people like my guest Chuck and I today, you definitely want to watch as we discuss our topics. So Weekly Business Hour page, YouTube, live show. And finally, if you have an idea, if you have a criticism about the show, constructive, please, or you have a business challenge and would like some input, drop me a line. Just send me an email at rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com, rick at irlonestar.com. I do respond to each and every email, and on some occasions I've been known to pull a business issue that someone sends me and present it in the mailbag segment of our show. So please reach out to me, Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Well, now, as they say, on with the show. We're blessed again to have Chuck Knabusch here today with 1310 Business Consulting. We're going to talk about, I assume, a variety of topics, business topics. And again, I hope that each of our listeners not only benefits education-wise, but perhaps even gets an idea or two that they can implement even today in their business. Chuck, good morning to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Rick. Thanks for having me on the show. I always love being here.
Have you been staying busy?
How can you not stay busy in Southeast Texas? Oh my goodness, there's always so many events going on, things to go ahead and do, whether it's in the local community or you decide you want to go to a bigger community like Houston or Dallas or San Antonio. There's always something going on.
Well, it's interesting in my opinion, and I've shared this with people. I grew up in a small business with my grandparents and my parents. I was the third generation, so I saw the creation and the development of a business, and you sort of did the same thing. And then I went on and had my own shot at it for 20 years, 5 different businesses that we started or bought and built and sold. Business creation is still alive and kicking out there right now, even though when we read headlines, it seems like the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but there's lots and lots of opportunity out there right now.
Well, and I think you're right. Whether the world's going to hell in a handbasket or not, we all kind of want to jump in our own driver's seat and take control of our path going forward, of our journey. And for a lot of people, that's creating a small business. That's saying, hey, I want to go ahead and do it on my own. There are things that I've seen because I've been in corporate America or I've worked for another small business. I didn't like what I saw there, and I think I can do it better. And I think that's, just part of the American spirit right there.
One of the interesting things that I read over the weekend, to me, very interesting, is the number of small businesses that apparently are being created. It's in the thousands, where an individual is creating a small business in a variety of fields, but due to the fact that they have, in their sense, harnessed AI, they're able to build, manage, develop, and be successful in a business with no employees. And these are $1 million plus businesses. That's their revenue figures. And apparently over the last couple of years, or perhaps since the pandemic, that probably people sought a new direction, all the different reasons they start businesses, but it's a solo business that's generating over $1 million a year in revenue, but it has no employees. Now, I'm sure there's some outsourcing, but that wasn't the point. It was that the tasks that AI are capable of doing, say the back room, the admin, things like that, and these people, it was amazing to read some of their stories. And they're not all tech businesses either. I mean, it's just their idea, what they want to do. They open their doors in 12, 24 months, they're up to $1 million in revenue. I mean, that is an amazing. So it's not helping unemployment, perhaps, but you're creating thousands and thousands of small businesses and employing those people, just not big numbers.
Well, to me, it's not always about how many people you employ, but it's what you're doing for the community. And even those individual businesses, if you're making $1 million, I don't know what your margin is on that, but I would say it's considerable if you don't have a lot of overhead. So now that money is able to go back into the community, whether they upgrade their home, whether they go ahead and buy a new car, whether they decide to go out to dinner more because they've got the funds to be able to do that. They're spending more because every one of those business people, they're not hoarding that money. They're putting it back into the community. So even those single business, those solopreneurs, those single operator businesses are really helping to go ahead and build the communities around them, not because they have employees, but because the money that they're putting back into the local economy.
You make an important point there, and that has received a certain amount of review and press coverage. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but the function of capital versus employment and how they have a certain balance or number. And the fact is that capital in the economy is grown way beyond where it normally is, whereas employment. So we are in some kind of major shift, I think. But your point about the fact that if I start a business, I'm successful, then I'm putting money back into the economy, whether there's one of me or 10 of me. And that money is being spent on employees, for other companies, concerns, fulfillment, whatever it is. And no, I'm personally, of course, I'm biased. I'm excited to read that thousands of people have had an opportunity through their own abilities and so on and so forth to create that kind of energy and wealth, if you will, of a million plus business. One of the stories I read was interesting. A lady who was in the software kind of AI business, working for a large company, doing coding, doing this and that. She went and developed a kind of a product, a software type product with a small tool, if you will. When I say small, not insignificant, but it wasn't a big blockbuster tool to be used with AI. And she sold it for $1 a month subscription. And within 6 months, she had over 100,000 users. Well, you can do the math, right? She's $1 million business over the next 12 months. And her margin is about 30-40%. And it's only her. Of course, she outsources the credit card processing, whatever, the monthly payments and all that. But she's walking away with over 30% a month. That's an amazing number of wealth creation in a short period of time.
Well, I mean, what to me, what stories like that say, and all these entrepreneurs who are starting businesses, is we can identify problems and we can come up with solutions for them. I mean, isn't that an absolutely amazing thing? Because there have been generations in our history who have said, well, you know what? It is the way it is. I'm just going to go ahead and tough it out. I'm going to go ahead and pull myself up from the bootstraps, and I'm just going to go ahead and make my way through. Okay, it's not ideal. But I think we're seeing a generation now who's saying, you know what? I don't necessarily like the way it is. I don't like the way it has been. I think I can make a difference and change that. And from that, I can go ahead and create a business. So, I mean, it's entrepreneurship, but it's growing exponentially. I don't know that we've ever seen something quite this big. And it is, I mean, it requires the identification of a problem, the identification and the curiosity to figure out what the solution is and try it. Because for every success story we hear, I'm sure there's 10 or more people who struggled, who had a problem, who may have had to go ahead and take a left turn or a right turn because that first idea for a business didn't work out. But they kept at it. So they still applied that grit that our forefathers had and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make this work out. Maybe this isn't the right problem. Maybe there's another problem out there that I can solve. So to me, it's just a wonderful time to go ahead and see society as a whole, lift themselves up and say, we can be better than what we were a day ago, a week ago, a generation ago.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because in the article, they had one individual who was working for a major corporation and was an engineer and so on and so forth, had the idea. So he quit his job, went over here and put together his business and went for about 6 months, and he really wasn't getting any traction, right? And I read into that he really didn't have the business background, didn't understand business. I mean, his idea was marketable. Other people were doing it, but he didn't say no marketing. He did, all these basic tools, because this is not a situation where I can be in corporate America and then tomorrow jump over and immediately own my own business. But the fact that technology has brought us to a point, regardless of AI, but we can operate a solo business and gross over $1 million in revenue. And do it very well and very effectively. And but you still got to have some business. And this is where people like you come in, or I as a mentor, trying to guide people who don't necessarily have that skill set or that background. The best idea in the world is worthless, right? History tells us that, unless it's properly put together, presented, marketed, and the service or product provided is quality. So it's interesting. Yes, people are failing. There's no doubt about it. But the idea that I don't have to hire a lot of people, that's got to be attractive to a lot of potential business startups. I don't need to hire, which we'll talk a little bit later in this edition about hiring and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm truly the master of my ship, like some of these people said earlier when I was commenting about what the biggest reward in business. I'm the master. I'm the only one that can, I got to have a mirror. I'm the only one I can blame if it doesn't work.
Well, but I mean, because you're right, there's a lot of stress when you say, well, I want to be a business, but you start thinking about, well, do I take on 3 people? Do I take on 5? Do I take on 10? Well, now I become responsible to some degree to whether they put food on their table, whether their kids get clothed and fed, whether they can go ahead and join athletics and all that. So it's neat that, a single individual can go ahead and do it. It's neat that the tools, the technology's out there. You're right. I think there's a lot of great people out there who can help provide that guidance, that advisory that's needed. And in some ways, AI is doing a bit of that for some people too. Is it perfect doing it through AI? Absolutely not. But do I suspect that more and more of kind of what I do, what you do, will go ahead and be taken on by AI? Absolutely. But what AI doesn't have necessarily is it has the breadth. It can pull from all sorts of books. It can pull from all sorts of ideas. But what it doesn't have is the actual experience that a human has to say, yes, I did this. I've walked in your shoes, or I've walked in shoes very similar to yours. And yep, here's some problems. Because I find when I use AI, a lot of times it wants to tell me, great job, you did this fantastic. Oh, that's the most brilliant idea out there. Yeah, not all my ideas are all that good. So, we have to be careful of what the limits of AI are, because part of it too is to hook you into a subscription, to go ahead and let you have some conversations that are meaningful, but they're doing it to go ahead and get a subscription fee out of you also. So again, I'm not downgrading AI. I think it's a wonderful tool, but put it in context. Go out there and find somebody who has spent some time in the trenches, who's done something similar, who can go ahead and give you a perspective that maybe AI can't, because while it can pull on the experience of literally thousands or millions, it doesn't have the true experience itself of ever having to have made the mistake, having to own up to it, having to understand and live through what that mistake may have caused and the impact on itself or on others.
Well, and to me, again, AI is, I don't want to call it the flavor of the month right now, because I think it's got a lot of long-term, a lot of long-term promises as well as sorrows. I mean, it's still developing, not unlike perhaps the development of the PC. I mean, it just takes time, and you go but what it is, and if people, at least my perspective and what I'm seeing with the businesses and our business roundtables and whatnot, it's a tool. It's just a tool. It's not going to change your world, but it may. And the fact that somebody can start a business and utilize it, but all the other technology is in there as well. That different tools such as software programs, computers that can run faster, communicate more, all the services that are available in the cloud, and the list goes on and on and on. It's funny, I started a business years ago, or actually a young man that I supported did, that he had worked with me, and I'd sold a business, and I asked him what he wanted to do. He'd been a great employee. He said, well, I want to get in the computer business. He gets in the business, and the business model changed. We went from building computers, PCs, servers, and whatnot. This is before Michael Dell became popular. I mean, that's how long ago it was. And then we morphed into a computer service business, which was basically hourly. And then I sold the business to one of my sons, And he went from 7 service people down to 1 person who works the phone. And if anyone ever has to go on site, which is rare, it's him. And so he makes a much higher profit margin. His sales are similar, but it's amazing because he went to a managed service, a new business model where he guarantees uptime. And it makes sense to the other side, to the small business. I mean, I can advocate it. Because unfortunately, sometimes customers don't even know he exists, but they're paying a monthly bill. But that's where he wants to be. He does not want, like the Maytag serviceman that we used to see in the cute ads when he's sitting there with nothing to do because they just kept working. But I think that there's a change in the business model happening now. And I think people in various industries need to take a look at that. And I think part of that is AI is opening doors, giving opportunities. And if current business owners aren't careful, they're going to get competition that's going to come in and be loaded for bear using AI and other tools and be able to deliver the product service for less money, higher quality perhaps, and they're going to have a real competition going for their current business. I encourage businesses to look at a different kind of model. It's no longer, Dad's Oldsmobile that we're driving anymore. It's a brand new game, and it's unfolding right before our eyes. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think we have to go ahead, though, be careful, because some of those single individual businesses who are using AI, they're going to want to scale at some point in time. They're going to say, well, if I can go ahead and do this with 1, how much more can I do with 3 people? So we have to be careful that we don't go ahead and start looking at our capabilities without also looking at the leadership that goes behind it. Because we can go ahead and grow. And if we grow and we don't have the policies, we don't have the processes, we don't have the documented procedures, all of a sudden we're going to go ahead and, while AI was a wonderful tool, it's going to go ahead and facilitate speed that we're not quite ready for. It was interesting. I think it was last week, I was having a conversation with a lady who is now helping and working with students, both at the high school as well as the college level, on the NIL for names, images, and likenesses. And realistically, the NCAA and the courts have decided the NIL, we can go ahead and now pay athletes, et cetera, is gone down into, at some state levels, high schools, which I think is even crazier. But we have done this, we've opened this up, but there aren't any real laws and guardrails yet, any real ethics, go to a financial advisor, you can find out, hey, have you passed your Series 6, your Series 7 test? And you get a certain sense of, okay, they know what they're talking about. But with AI, we don't know what they're, who is really certified, who is ethical, who is not. So, we have to kind of be careful in this wild west of business right now, and as business models change, because, where do we go ahead and take it? Where do we draw the lines? We don't want to get so far out in front of it where, we know that the legal segment is going to take a long time for them to catch up. But realistically, we don't want to be so far in front of it that we're going to get tied up in lawsuits one way or the other. I had a person reach out to me and say, hey, Chuck, with all your content and everything else, I'd love to put an AI on your website where, for certain clients, we can put it even behind a paywall. For certain clients, they can go ahead and ask your AI certain questions. So that way you don't have to go ahead and answer every question. Kind of that service model that you were talking about your son, that service provider. And I said, well, that's neat. But what happens if the AI gives something that's not 100% the same thing that I would, or that it starts to push ethical boundaries or legal boundaries or anything else? Does my professional insurance go ahead and cover something like that? And of course, this individual said, well, I don't know. That hasn't been decided yet. Yeah, but I don't want it to be decided when I'm in the suit, to be honest with you, I'd rather read about an article next week or the month after or something else that had happened to somebody else. And not that I wish badness on anybody. But on the other hand, I don't want to be so far on that cutting edge as to go ahead and be the lawsuit that sets the precedent for something in the future. So we need to step back a little bit. We need to think through how we're going to be using AI as a tool. It's a wonderful tool, don't get me wrong, but we need to think through, how does it even apply to a one-person operation? Because at some point in time, that pressure is going to go ahead and build for us to scale into a 2-person, a 3-person, a 10-person, a 100-person operation. And there are corporations, there are small businesses that are using AI right now that may not have the policies yet in place. And how does that go ahead and affect their HR? What happens when somebody, they wear many hats, they go ahead and throw all the payroll into AI just to go ahead and see, is there something we're doing that's unbalanced or that's not right? And AI uses that for learning rather than just to go ahead and provide answers. And now people's social security numbers are out there, or people's pay information's out there, and somehow that gets applied in another business, or it gets applied someplace else, or it takes the information that you gave it as learning and it applies it to other businesses out there. So while AI, I think, is a phenomenal tool, we have to go ahead and understand, how far should we go? And we should be asking the questions that, are we using it ethically? Are we using it carefully? Are we getting beyond our capabilities just because we want to go ahead and expand and grow and become bigger?
I think you just hit on probably one of, if not the biggest challenges to most smaller businesses, medium-sized business, and let's be frank, even the large businesses, the corporations, and the Fortune 500, is what are the limitations? I find a tendency when we talk about AI to talk about the day-to-day practical limitations, but not what you talked about. What are the ramifications? What does this mean? And I hate to see that. I hate to hear, particularly small businesses, because if they make a mistake, and use your example, get sued, those are the kind of things that'll kill a small business. A small business is not geared to handle a large lawsuit, or they're just not. They don't have the expertise. Typically, would not have the funds. I mean, as someone who was a litigation lawyer, after I sold my last business, I spent 3 years in the field. And I told every client, I said, the last place you want to be is in a courtroom. These were people who were suing someone else on typically business matters. So that whole, they need to tread very carefully and make sure that they have good advisors as they go into this, whether it's an accountant, lawyer, or 1310 or something. Because if you go all in on some of this stuff, who knows what's going to happen?
Well, I was talking to somebody, an HR consultant who specializes now in applying AI into HR, into the realm of HR. And she was interesting. She says, well, I just went and finished and got this certificate, that certificate, this certificate. And I asked the question, well, how do we know that certificate really has any value yet? I mean, there's not an AI accreditation agency or organization. There's not something that's been tried and true that's out there. So, I mean, technically, not that I would, but I mean, I could create an AI certificate, hand it to you, and you could go around saying, hey, I'm AI certified by 1310. But what does that mean? We're starting to put the cart before the horse just a little bit in some instances with AI, because we see the value, we see the benefits, we see the opportunities, but we need to go ahead and step back as leaders, business leaders, and say, and ask the questions and they're tough ones, that is this appropriate in this instance? Do I go ahead and give it all this? Is the security really as tight as they say? We haven't had a lot of breaches yet, but it wasn't too long ago that I read AI breached its own security. It was in a sandbox. It was in a standalone type of thing. And it was not told by the creator or by anyone working with it, but it came up with its own idea to try and breach its own security and get out into a broader world. It's kind of scary. So, I mean, that wasn't a hacker trying to use AI to go further. It was AI doing it for itself. So we need to understand, I don't want to get all the way down in some of the ethical things that we can talk about AI, because I'm certainly not an expert on it. But we do, as business leaders, have to go ahead and say, are we applying it correctly? Are we putting the cart before the horse? Are we doing it just to expand, to get growth, to outsource one more possible cost that we have to make it less expensive for us? But are we cutting a corner?
Well, and I think it's so important to extend that out. And unfortunately, I've seen too many people not do this. When you decide to cut a corner, to use your nomenclature, but you decide to implement anything really to be more efficient. And an AI thing, again, I believe is an elephant on a full gallop. I mean, it's just running. I challenge every business, and small business again, particularly, because we put something in, and if everybody's happy, it's good. But what is your expectation? What is your return? What is your metric of performance in dollars and cents, particularly? In other words, this is going to save us $1,000 a month, or this, and they don't go back and check after 60, 90, 180 days, whatever period is reasonable, 1 year, and make sure they're getting at least the minimum expectation, metric, whatever, and quantify that they really did create a savings, or they don't drill down. And you deal with this all the time in other areas to see what's really happening on the shop floor as a result of that implementation and really coming to understand. So, yeah, I'm all for using tools such as AI, but be sure you put a metric or two or whatever, in other words, frame it and write down the expectations, because these things get their own life and they just sort of run away and they create havoc, which means they're going to impact your revenue and or your bottom line. There's no doubt about it, in a negative way.
Well, and I think understanding the expectations and understanding the ROI and following up on that and performance metrics are good. But I think we need to also look at the other side, look at the risks before we go ahead and enter in. What's the risk profile? What would trigger the risk where I need to go ahead and back out, or I need to stop doing that? Because I think AI is becoming momentum. And I've heard a lot recently that businesses, they love momentum. I do too. I mean, I love the high from momentum. I love, hey, we're going. But we also have to understand that can be a negative side to momentum too. I mean, think of the rapids in a river as momentum. Yes, I'm going to go from point A to point B in the river. Generally, I'm not going to go ahead and be thrown on shore. But during that trip, because of those rapids, I could be going a little more left or a little bit more right than I want to. I can go ahead and be tossed and turned over those rapids. I could be overturned in my boat, my canoe, my kayak, whatever I'm in, because of momentum. Momentum doesn't always go our way. And ultimately, momentum's going to go ahead and calm down. I mean, every river at some point in time, calms down where maybe the current isn't quite as fast. Maybe you don't have the rapids. Maybe things just go ahead and flatten out. Well, have we built our business 100% on momentum and forgot that there's going to be slow periods too? So we have to go ahead and not just jump on momentum for momentum's sake, but we also have to go ahead and say, well, okay, do we really have a system? Do we really have processes? Do we really have procedures that will outlast when the momentum fades?
Well, and you make a wonderful point, because to me, momentum is a revenue business building thing. And like you say, when the business gets to whatever point that is, and we all hope it goes on forever. In fact, there's some great songs that I can recall. And the party goes on forever, and it never does. And that's where business building takes place, the solid framework. You use that momentum like a marketing program, advertising program. You bring in 10% more sales now. How can you retain those sales? And
Right.
I agree. People, you got to be always every day building a solid business that can withstand the ups and downs. Because in my experience, rarely is a business always on that upward projection. I'll never forget, I was working with a client. These two individuals were from out of the country. They came here, established a business, and it was a vocational school for chefs and restaurant people. They'd been successful. They'd reached an age because their children lived in different places around the world. They just wanted to sell the business. And they built a good business. They had a steady, stream of students, and their revenues were consistent. But we were entering a period of time on the economy where historically their industry shot up, right? Vocational schools, when the economy gets bad or soft or whatever, people come and they want to learn something, a new trade. And it just started. And based on previous history, I was able to determine that this was a momentum that almost went straight up. And I said to them, one option, and it may not excite you, is to stay on this business for another 3 or 4 years and develop that momentum and take it all the way out. And you're liable to get 2, 3, or more times for the business what we're talking about today. And that's what they did. And that's what happened. But they were looking at this huge momentum that was coming to carry their business. And in my mind, they prepared to ride it up, and then in their case, to sell the business. It plays a part in every business's history, life, and success. And you make a wonderful point. I do have to come back and ask you a question. You mentioned earlier that you don't want to have a business that is the lawsuit that determines how, in this case, AI works or doesn't work, or who's responsible. I'm going to tell you something, Chuck. In my experience, I had a lawsuit. In this case, it was a startup business, my partner and I, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. And we were in a suit that would determine a particular point of patent law. And we didn't have a choice. I mean, we were a little bitty guy, but because of the circumstances of my partner, his approach to things, and so on and so forth, we were able to take it to the court. We won an 8-0 decision. All we got from the plaintiffs was our expenses, but our legal bills were held in check. But the point is, I assure you're 100% right. You don't want to spend a year, 2, 3 years like we did, riding the litigation up the chain. And of course, we got a good decision, and it was interesting and educational, but it's not the way to make money. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I mean, we know that there's organizations, there's law firms out there who want to go ahead and set precedent. And that's great for them. They've gone ahead and looked at the risk profile and figured out, hey, that works for them. But that's not what I set out to do.
Right.
Now, like you, if sometimes circumstances are such that that's where you find yourself, yeah, that doesn't mean back down. That doesn't mean, give up just because you found yourself in some kind of tougher circumstances and a much broader suit type of thing. So, you have to kind of weigh that back and forth, but I don't set out to go ahead and be the precedent setter when it comes to legal issues. And, back to the momentum for just a moment. I love momentum. I love how it can go ahead and give your organization that boost, but we can't confuse momentum with capability, because sometimes we can ride that wave of momentum and it'll take us, whether it's 1 year, 3 years, whatever, 1 month, but we have to have built the capability underneath it to go ahead and allow us to keep using that momentum. Because at some point in time, as you've said, as I've said in different examples, the momentum will cease. But if the capability is not there, then you just come crashing down and you have nothing. So with the momentum, build the capability that supports it.
Let's take this, it was something I bumped into just by pure chance recently. Take the momentum idea, and I'd like to hear what your take on it. In this case, it was a movie. I happened to cross a movie. It was been out for some time, and it involved an individual who was a roofer. Okay, he was in the roofing business, but he was in the roofing business like a lot of them. He didn't have employees. He would find, hire crews to do the work, and he had gone through some terrible situation with his family. His wife had passed. He had a daughter who was chronically ill and would die if she didn't get a transplant. And the bills were unbelievable. The hospital bills, everything. And this individual, just by chance, of course, Hollywood movie script, was played by Hilary Swank, beautician, kind of scatterbrain. She sees the problem they have. She doesn't know them, but she goes out and raises money. But most importantly, there's a storm situation. So there's like 200 homes that need new roofs. Well, this guy doesn't really have the capability, but he is looking at the possibility, and she steps in because she's a pusher or goer. And a well-established company says, well, we do need some help. Maybe we'll sub to you, so to speak. And says, I've got at least 100 roofs that I've got to have done in the next 3 months. And how many of those could you do? Well, the main character, the roofer, just kind of hems and haws, and she speaks up, says, we'll take half of them. And as they walk away, he looks at her and says, that's 4 times more roofs than I can do. And she looks back at him and she says, look, we got the business now. We'll figure out how to make it happen because you need the money. And I just stopped and I thought about that. What do you say to someone like that they have the opportunity to get some momentum, to get a big piece of business, go ahead and take that risk and then figure out how to get it in and produce the work? What do we do about that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, that's a real interesting thing. Because I think they're using momentum, and yet she's coming back and saying, okay, we need to build the capability that fits with the momentum. So I think that ties perfectly into what we've been talking about, in that, hey, we're not just going to go ahead and hope and wish that we can go ahead and do it. We're going to have to go out and build the capability that fits with now a commitment that's been made. We're going to do 50 roofs in X number of days. So, it may not be, hey, I can continue to just go out and pick up workers as I need them. I may have to go ahead and hire workers or subcontract workers to know that I have them, not just on Monday, but on Monday through Friday or on Monday through Saturday, whatever their business is. But I love that as an example, as let's build the capability that fits with the momentum that we currently have.
And you got to have, obviously, the confidence. And I've seen people be very successful with that approach. Also seen a few people fail as they could not increase or build that capability to meet the demands of that opportunity. But it's hard to pass by that kind of momentum, that kind of opportunity, especially if you're a small business owner, whether you're starting out or you've been doing it for 10, 20 years. There's no doubt about it. Well, Chuck, with the time that we have left, I'd like to shift gears a little bit. I had communicated with you about an idea I thought that might be interesting to do, and it's something that we do in our business roundtables, where we go around the room and everybody sort of updates the group by saying, this is what I did the last 30 days, what I accomplished, not what I did. And then this is what I expect to accomplish the next 30 days. And then, of course, the other members keep them accountable, because the next month say, well, how did you do on your 30-day goal? In your opinion, using this kind of layout, so to speak, to work to, tell me about something significant you think that either you were involved in or that happened in the business world in the past 30 days. What caught your eye?
I have a love-hate relationship with status updates like that, to be honest with you, Rick. On the one hand, I think it's a great to bring everybody up to speed. I think it's absolutely necessary to hold one another accountable. But what I've seen those devolve into so much is all of a sudden I start telling you, well, yeah, I have no problem with if I want to look back in that meeting and say, okay, I told you I was going to do 6 things, A, B, C, D, E, F. I got A, B, C done, but I did not do D, E, and F. And not getting them done, I did an after action review. And from that, I learned this. I learned that D, I probably shouldn't be doing, so I'm going to drop it. But E and F, I'm going to get done over the next 30 days. And this is what I'm going to change because I reviewed why I didn't get it done last time. And then I think, certainly you now have a look back. What did I commit to? What did I go ahead and do? You have accountability. You go ahead and demonstrate some learning. Hey, I need to do this. I need to go ahead and do this differently going forward. You go ahead, show adjustment. And then I have no problem with the look forward saying, this is what I'm specifically going to go ahead and do before we meet again. But I think we have to be very careful with those types of meetings, roundtables, that they don't become just a session where everybody starts talking and 20 minutes later, Chuck is still talking about what he should have gotten done last month. And, we only have 40 minutes left and there's 8 more of us to go. So to me, it's a love-hate relationship. I'd rather go ahead, formalize the look back a little bit more, and then go ahead and move more into the accountability and look forward.
Well, in all fairness, I did not give you all the context. First of all, there's a timer involved, 2 minutes. And when the 2 minutes is over, you're off. What it is intended to do with the business owner is to help them focus on something new. It's not like I'm going to move from point A to point B. It's typically, I have an idea to do this, and I'm going to research this, and we're going to seek to implement it. Then the following month, well, we researched it, it wasn't a good idea, or we didn't have the capability, or we're moving forward, but I've run into this. Does anybody have any thoughts? But that conversation takes place within those 2 minutes or offline after the meeting, which is a big part of our roundtable, are the people that stay around for the 15, 20 minutes or more, visiting, particularly on issues, trying to help each other, whatever. But the idea, back to you, is as we kind of wind up here, what is something significant that you've seen in the business world you've dealt with personally, or you just have a thought about in the last 30 days? What has come across your desk that caught your eye?
Great question. Because I don't know that we always step back and think through, do that look back like we should, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. But again, I think the new ways AI is being applied. I think it's interesting to go ahead, the conversation that I had with an individual about the NIL and how that's creating new businesses, to go ahead and help these younger people who've maybe never had any money before. All of a sudden they see that their pockets are a lot fuller than they ever have been. Maybe it'll lead back into some stronger education, even in the high school level, about money management and financials. So I think there's a lot of things going on in business. And you're right, like you, I read a lot. I like to go ahead and ponder some of it. A lot of it will come out in my Substack articles or my unsolicited feedback interviews with people that and the content that I'm putting out there.
The thing that I, in the last 30 days, have come to realize through the Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce meetings and meeting with business people here in our area, the Montgomery County, Texas area primarily, and some people in other parts of the state particularly, is that business momentum in general has slowed a little bit. But what's interesting here in Montgomery is they're hitting a wall, that's my term, where business is really great here in Montgomery County. It's on all the national list about being one of the fastest growing, City of Conroe, the county seat where we are this morning, same thing. But what's happened is it's naturally attracted competition all the way across the board in so many industries. So now if I want to hire, say, an air conditioning heating contractor, there used to be 5, now there's 10, 15. I mean, they're everywhere. And that's true in other businesses, even storefront businesses. There's a tire shop on every other corner. There's, the dry cleaner used to be the one that we'd hit on every corner. But I mean, it is hit. And what I'm seeing is all of a sudden, say the folks that are in our roundtable are in these various industries and they find it more difficult, more challenging, and more expensive to acquire new business. It's got its own negative momentum, so to speak, and that's a natural thing, right? You got a great place to do business. I noticed yesterday, my wife and I went out and had some lunch, and we were driving. I think I counted 3 or 4 cars with out-of-state license plates, which is unusual. I mean, we're living up in a semi-rural area, Montgomery, Texas, growing leaps and bounds, but to see that had some kind of message in it. To see 1 or 2, but 3 or 4 different states in the little bit of traffic we were traveling in. So Montgomery County, again, looking back, is reaching a point which Harris County's reached, New York has reached, California, Texas, and I think it requires a shift in our techniques and the tools we use, whether it be an AI or anything. So that's what I've seen in the last 30 days that I thought was significant, that is really, from my perspective, is really growing, is that competitive challenge that all the businesses in this community are having, because we're attracting people. That's who's buying those thousands of homes literally that are being built all around the Conroe area. So it'll be an interesting time. We're anxious to see how the county and the business people handle it. Well, Chuck, I can't thank you enough for taking time to visit today. I not only enjoyed the conversations, but I feel that those who have listened to this will gain an immense amount and potentially develop their own idea or plan to help their business be more successful. If people want to follow up and touch base with you, perhaps engage you to help them through some of these issues that we discussed, what's the best way for them to do it?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is check out my website, 13ten.com. Send me an email, chuck@1310.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Substack. You can find me on YouTube. It's not like I'm hiding. I don't know that I'm the #1 Google because I'm not great at the SEO and the marketing on that side, but I am out there. 1310.com or chuck@1310, and you'll reach me very easily.
Well, again, thank you, Chuck, and I look forward to visiting with you again next month. And who knows what we might expound on? Who knows? There's a new, better tool or idea out there that we'll come across and hopefully be able to distill it down so our small business listeners can benefit from it. Ladies and gentlemen, please put a note on your calendar. Join us again next Monday right here on irlonestar.com, 11 o'clock. We're always here 11 to 12. Also, if you want to re-listen to any portion or the entire program, you just simply go to Facebook, YouTube, go to the Weekly Business Hour page. The program will be posted there shortly. You can also go to the website of Lone Star Community Radio. That's irlonestar.com. Click on daytime programs, and you can click on the Weekly Business Hour and re-listen there as well. And I would encourage you and ask you, please, share this. Share that link with someone that you know is in business and could use a connection that hopefully would benefit them in their business. And as I like to say every week, I close with this because it really is meaningful and something I heard many years ago. Stay engaged and keep your focus in the coming week on what really counts in your business. Thanks.